compared to what we've seen so far this season, Week 8 of college football was relatively normal. Sure, we had a handful of upsets. We saw some controversial finishes. We saw some great plays. We saw some great performances from individual players. But overall, compared to what we've seen in Week 7 and Week 6, and basically every week up until this point, Week 8 of college football was normal. It was tame, and some would even say it was lackluster. But yet we still have 12 major games that we want to touch on in our Gridiron Expert Week 8 recap. And don't get too excited. Don't think things are going to go back to normal, because I can promise you starting next week, Halloween weekend, the madness will resume. So again, guys, welcome to the Gridiron Expert, giving you a breakdown and a recap of everything that happened in Week 8 of college football. We still have a lot to discuss, a lot to cover here. Let's go ahead and start over here on our big board. We'll touch on our teams trending up and trending down at the end of this video. And again, timestamps for every game we will discuss and every team here will be listed down in the description, along with other college football offers that you do not want to miss. But we look over on our big board here and look at how we did. 21-5 straight up. Round that up, that's 81%. And we cracked 100 wins in 2020. And I think that's a pretty dang good accomplishment considering everything that has happened again and what's been a wild year of college football so far. 105-32 straight up. Round that up, that's 77%. And again, our goal every year is 76%. So we are sitting pretty more than halfway through this college football season. Against the spread, 5-5, breaking even at 500. But let me tell you, this was one of the more frustrating weeks that we've ever had, more so than some of the previous weeks. You know, if UAB doesn't blow that 10-point third quarter lead and lost the game to Louisiana, a game that snapped their 21-game home winning streak, we finish at 60%. If Miami doesn't allow Virginia to hang in the game for the entirety of the game, down at Hard Rock Stadium, allowing a late touchdown there and only winning by 5, we finished at 60 or 70%. So we had our opportunities. The teams didn't come through for us, but we picked them, and that's why they call it gambling, guys. You know, you just hit or miss sometimes, and obviously some of the bad beats did not go in our favor this weekend. But breaking even, would much rather break even than lose. So 5-5, bringing our overall to 35-37, moving up a couple of percentage points here. 48.6% rounded up, it's at 49. And again, we play the long game. We're guaranteeing a 53% winning percentage. It's going to happen. A lot of football left to be played. A lot of bowl games coming up in the postseason. We're going to get there. We're starting to get hot. I can feel it. Next week going to be even better for our spread picks here at the Gridiron Expert. And again, you can find all those on our expert picks over on our website, thegridironexpert.com. So let's get to the action, guys. You don't want to hear about these numbers. You want to hear about the numbers that Graham Mertz put up for Wisconsin on Friday night. That's where we begin our recap here. If you remember in 2019, Illinois in Champaign upset the 6th-ranked Wisconsin Badgers, the team that was a 30-point favorite going into that game. The Fighting Illini upset the Badgers on a game-winning field goal, 24-23. So it was only fitting that Illinois and Wisconsin were to meet in the Big Ten opener. Not just the Big Ten opener for both teams, but the way to kick off the entire conference. And you looked at this game with no fans in attendance, with Wisconsin not having Jonathan Taylor, starting Graham Mertz for the first time, and Illinois returning so much talent, you thought maybe the Fighting Illini can hang in this game. Maybe they can hang in there, not win it, but hang in there as 20-point underdogs. And nothing could be further from the truth, guys. Wisconsin dominated this game from start to finish, defeating the Fighting Illini 45-7. And while you look at that score and you say, okay, big deal, that's to be expected. What was not expected was Graham Mertz, the freshman quarterback, going 20 for 21, one incompletion on the day, for 248 yards and 5 touchdowns. This guy is unreal for the Badgers. And he may have been the missing piece that Wisconsin's been looking for these past few years. You know, we've seen Wisconsin make the Big Ten championship. We've seen them fight for college football playoff berths in recent years. They've never been able to do it because they haven't had a quarterback. Mertz could be that guy. I know it's just Illinois, but he looked dang good. If Wisconsin makes the Big Ten title game this year, they have a legitimate chance to win it. If they run the table, they have a legitimate chance to make the playoff, and it's all going to be because of their defense and going to be because they finally have a quarterback in Graham Mertz. Moving on to Saturday. If you watch those early games, maybe you saw at one point where the top-ranked team in the country in Clemson was only leading Syracuse 27-21 late in the third quarter. I turned on that game and I was surprised. I was shocked to see Syracuse connect on an 83-yard touchdown pass. Rex Culpepper playing relatively well in replacement of Tommy DeVito. And that touchdown pass cut the deficit to 6. I think at one point Syracuse was trailing by 20. So you looked at that late in the third quarter, it remains that way, and you're thinking, this is deja vu. We've seen this story before. Syracuse has taken Clemson down the wire. Are they going to do it again? The same Syracuse team that just got beat at home against Liberty? Clemson said not so fast. They woke up late in the third quarter. Andrew Booth had a 21-yard scoop and score off of Rex Culpepper. Pulled away, getting up by 13 points there. Clemson ended up winning 47-21. So 27-21 late in the third. They scored the remaining 20 points there to win by 26. But unimpressive for about 3 quarters there from the Tigers. And that's not going to fly for Dabo Swinney. And certainly not going to fly when they start facing more difficult opponents. If you face a team, dare I say, Notre Dame, a team we'll talk about soon. You face a team like that, maybe North Carolina, maybe Miami again. And you play that poorly, a better team might not allow you to escape like they did. So Clemson dominating in the end, but they were almost 50-point favorites in that game, only getting about half of that in the victory over the Orange. Another top team in the country. Many believe this team to be better than the Tigers. Ohio State, the 5th-ranked team in the country, defeating Nebraska 52-17. Only fitting that 2 of the teams in the Big Ten that I guess were the biggest advocates for playing college football this season, playing college football within the Big Ten, only fitting that those 2 teams would meet up in Week 1. And of course, it's no surprise that the Buckeyes won this game, even though it was tied at 14-all late in the second quarter. But after that, Ohio State scored 24 straight, and just like Graham Mertz, Justin Fields had himself a day. It's a very good chance, a very good possibility we see these 2 quarterbacks meet in the Big Ten championship game. Justin Fields, 20 for 21, 276 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, had 54 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown as well. So Justin Fields picking up right where he left off, following that devastating playoff loss to Clemson last year. Ohio State really seems like a team on a mission in 2020. I get it's just Nebraska, but we've heard the hype surrounding the Buckeyes all season long. We know they have so much talent on both sides of the ball. Can Ryan Day and his Buckeye squad get the job done this season? Impressive victory over Nebraska, a team that has a very difficult schedule. The Big Ten not doing them any favors in 2020. Our first ranked versus ranked matchup of Week 8 came an in-state rivalry within the ACC between North Carolina and North Carolina State. And we said in our Week 8 predictions, we felt very confident in North Carolina taking care of business in this game, especially with the Wolfpack being without Devin Leary, and with the Wolfpack, playing well, but having not really faced an offense like North Carolina. The question was whether the Tar Heels were going to be able to bounce back following that embarrassing performance against Florida State, where they trailed, 31-7 at halftime, and almost came back and won before falling 31-28. The Tar Heels answered the call. The 14th-ranked Tar Heels took down the 23rd-ranked Wolfpack 48-21. Again, the Wolfpack to me never really had much of a chance in this game. North Carolina 326 rushing yards in this game. Tar Heels leaning more on the run game this season, maybe more so than they're leaning on Sam Howell, kind of like they did last year. 160 of those 326 rushing yards came from Javonte Williams. So you look at that, Michael Carter, Javonte Williams, that 1-2 punch at running back for North Carolina this season. Great bounce-back win for Matt Brown and his squad, getting a win over an in-state rival, getting a win over a ranked opponent, boost that resume a little bit. It was dominating from start to finish, both offensively and defensively, as they held NC State to 34 rushing yards and forced 4 turnovers, something that UNC really need to get back to doing, imposing their will on both sides of the ball. I really think this was the best performance we've seen out of North Carolina this season, without a doubt. Maybe this is the wake-up call they needed. They've got a little momentum. They found their mojo. They found their groove. Maybe they get going over the remainder of this season. Remember, they only have one conference loss, so ACC title hopes are certainly not out of the picture. Moving back over to the Big Ten, we're kind of alternating here. We talked about Wisconsin, Clemson, Ohio State, UNC. Let's go back to the Big Ten here for a game that no one was talking about going into Week 8, but we've got to talk about it now. Rutgers, the Scarlet Knights. Come on, man. The nation's darling now. Greg Schiano, brand new head coach for Rutgers, I should say making his return to Rutgers, facing off against Mel Tucker, going over from Colorado to Michigan State. So two brand new head coaches facing off at Michigan State. And Rutgers, a team that has not won a Big Ten game since 2017, had not defeated a Big Ten opponent since 2017, walks in to East Lansing and beats the Spartans 38-27. They barely beat Michigan State. They took care of Michigan State. It was a dominating performance. Again, it was 38-20. Michigan State getting a late touchdown there. A dominating performance. And this looked like a brand new Rutgers team. Something we've never seen before from the Scarlet Knights, at least in probably the past 4 or 5 years. They finally have themselves a quarterback. Noah Vedral, the transfer quarterback from Nebraska, throwing for 169 yards and a touchdown. Also adding a rushing touchdown there. The Scarlet Knights, sure, they were outgained by 93 yards against the Spartans, but maybe that's because Rutgers forced 7 turnovers in this game. Field was a little bit shorter for the Scarlet Knights. Unbelievable performance from Greg Schiano. 7 turnovers, 12 tackles for a loss, and get this stat right here. I love this. Since 2018, Rutgers had scored 21 points against a Big Ten opponent just one time. All of 2018, all of 2019, they scored 21 points against a Big Ten opponent once. Rutgers had that number covered in the first half. It just comes to show you how important coaching is and what a good coach can do for a program. You look at a team like Arkansas, who was in a very similar situation as Rutgers, snapping their 20-game SEC losing streak a few weeks ago against Mississippi State. Rutgers doing something very similar here. First Big Ten win since 2017. On the road, I should add, against Michigan State. Not necessarily a powerhouse, but who cares? Scarlet Knights, you have a reason to be excited again, a reason to be happy again. Michigan State, we knew it was going to be a rough year for you, but it might be a little bit rougher than we anticipated. But congratulations to Rutgers, Greg Schiano, and the Scarlet Knights. I was looking forward to seeing them back in action, to seeing the new look Rutgers, and they look better than I could have expected. Moving over to the SEC, Alabama, Tennessee. Are we surprised by this outcome? Tennessee's on our teams trending down, so I think you know how it played out. The second-ranked Crimson Tide took down the Volunteers 48-17, but at the cost of losing star wide receiver Jalen Waddle. I think that's the bigger storyline to come out of this game than the victory for Alabama, because everybody knew the Crimson Tide was going to win this game. Tennessee, guys, you lost 34-7 last week to Kentucky. You weren't going to win at home against Alabama. It wasn't going to happen. I mean, come on. But Alabama loses Jalen Waddle, which means guys are going to have to step up. Devontae Smith, John Mechie, Najee Harris continuing to step up. Had 3 touchdowns and 96 yards in this game against the Volunteers. But a huge loss for this Alabama offense. You question, will that come back to bite them later on down the road? There might not be a team in the SEC left that can beat Alabama, at least until the SEC title game when maybe they face off against Georgia again. And maybe not a team that can beat them, if it's not Georgia, until they make the playoff. If they make the playoff against a team like Ohio State or Clemson. So the Jalen Waddle injury might not come back to bite them until later on in the year, but it is going to be very, very rough and concerning considering he is out for the entire season. But Alabama dominating their rival yet again. I believe it's now 14 straight against the Volunteers. Mac Jones continuing to put up Heisman-like numbers. 387 passing yards in this game. No passing touchdowns, but did add a rushing touchdown on a QB sneak. So Alabama continuing to look good. Still deserve that number 2 team in the country recognition, that spot. And they won't be overtaken, really, I believe, until they lose, if you're asking me. Over to the Big 12, one of our biggest games of the week, Oklahoma State, the 6th-ranked Cowboys, taking down the 17th-ranked Iowa State Cyclones 24-21. You know, this was a game that I think the score makes it look a little bit closer than it was. Iowa State got a late touchdown in this game to make it 3 points. And it was disappointing. This was a game that I think for both teams, to me, it was disappointing. I expected more out of them. Iowa State was able to draw first blood. The defense was playing lights out early on. Brock Purdy got a great touchdown there early in the game, jumped out to a 7-0 lead. But then Oklahoma State woke up. They took over. The game was tied early in the third quarter, tied at 14. But then things got sloppy. Iowa State, a couple crucial turnovers there. Oklahoma State, back and forth, a couple crucial turnovers and mistakes there. But it was in the end, I think the Oklahoma State defense ended up being the difference maker here. That's kind of what we expected. It wasn't as high scoring as I thought it would be. It wasn't as almost competitive as I thought it would be. I really expected both teams to be able to move the ball a little bit better in this game. But the ironic thing in this game between the Cowboys and the Cyclones to me was we praised both teams on stopping the run. We praised both of them on their ability to shut down the run. And yet the run games dominated on Saturday afternoon. Iowa State, 227 rushing yards. Breece Hall continuing to dominate. One of the most underrated players in the country, I think. 185 yards and 1 touchdown for Breece Hall in Stillwater. Oklahoma State, 226 rushing yards on the day. Chuba Hubbard had 139 of those. And Spencer Sanders had 71 of those and a touchdown as well. Spencer Sanders, a huge key in this game. We knew he was going to be back. We just didn't know how much he was going to play and how well he was going to play, having not played since earlier in September when he injured his ankle against Tulsa. But he came back, looked better than ever. Sure, he had 2 interceptions, but he did have 235 passing yards, over 300 total yards. And this Oklahoma State team, guys, is looking pretty dang good. The defense stiffened up. Sanders looks better than ever. Take care of those turnovers. He's going to be a pretty dang good quarterback. The Cowboys are the lone undefeated team in the Big 12. Only 2 teams remain undefeated in conference play, Kansas State and Oklahoma State. The Cowboys, though, their toughest games are still ahead of them. Baylor, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas State, for that matter. All those guys are still ahead for the Cowboys. So getting through this season, undefeated is going to be a very tall task. And you can't help but wonder, with how crazy the Big 12 is this season, will one loss for the Cowboys knock them out of the college football playoff discussion? That remains to be seen, but they got past their toughest test yet in Iowa State, 24-21 in Stillwater. Huge win for Mike Gundy and the Cowboys. All right, let's allot some time for this one. I'm sure we all know what happened in Bloomington on Saturday afternoon. With the Big Ten coming back, we knew things were going to get exciting. We knew things were going to be fun. We knew we were going to have more crazy upsets and the opportunity for more madness because it's 2020. What else would we expect? Indiana, guys, the Hoosiers took down the 8th-ranked team in the country, Penn State, 36-35 in overtime. Now, why did we say we were going to allot time for this? Why did we kind of say it like the way we did? Well, this was a roller coaster of emotions for both teams, a roller coaster of a game for the casual fan. I was watching this game. I have no affiliation with Indiana, no affiliation with Penn State, and I was sweating. My heart was racing. I was on the edge of my seat for this game because, again, it was a game of highs and lows. I mean, just when you thought it was over, it would dip back down. It was going to be even again. Then you thought it was over, and it was going back down. Indiana held a 17-7 halftime lead against the 8th-ranked team in the country. Things were looking good for the Hoosiers. Defense was playing great. Penn State struggling to move the ball. Penn State took a 21-20 lead on a 60-yard touchdown pass from Sean Clifford to Dotson with 2:30 left in the game. It looked like Penn State was going to escape with the win, especially when Indiana got the ball back and the Penn State defensive line woke up, forced a 4th and long, got the stop. Penn State takes over on the 14-yard line with a minute 40 left, minute 50 left, give or take. Indiana has 1 timeout. All Penn State needed to do was maybe run 1 play, force Indiana to call that timeout, knee it a few times. Even if they had knelt it 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row, Indiana would have had no timeouts, couple seconds left inside their 15 to try to go down there and get a field goal. I mean, the odds of them doing that were slim to none. But Devin Ford, scored a touchdown with 1:42 left. And usually that would be a joyous occasion. You see a guy score a touchdown, you're happy for him, you're pumped. But no one in Happy Valley, no one that was supporting Penn State and Bloomington was happy for that touchdown, because that touchdown made the game 28-20 with 1:42 left, meaning Indiana still had a chance to go tie the game because it was still a one-possession game, and the Hoosiers still had that one timeout. And that's exactly what the Hoosiers did. They marched all the way down the field, scored the game-tying touchdown and two-point conversion from Michael Penix with about 22 seconds left. Well then, Indiana botches the kick, whatever the heck you want to call that. Penn State takes over on Indiana's 49-yard line. So they need about 10 yards, give or take, to line up for a potential game-winning field goal. If Indiana kicks the ball normally, Penn State just sends the game into overtime. No way they try to score. But hey, James Franklin's like, look, we're giving a blessing here. Let's go for it. They line up for the game-tying or game-winning field goal, 57 yards out. It looked good. Let me tell you, Stout had the distance, but it fell just short. Or I should say, it looked like he had the distance. It fell just short. It was on target. The game goes to overtime. Penn State hits first. 35-28 in overtime. Indiana marches right back, responds. 35-34. Then Tom Allen said, you know what? Come on. We're at home. We've battled back the way we have. A roller coaster of a game again. Let's go for two. What the heck? Let's go for two. Let's go for the win. And Michael Penix wasn't supposed to run originally. Pass wasn't there. Rolls left. Dives for the pylon. Ooh, it was too close to call. The referee says it's good. Indiana wins 36-35. Now we review the play. And let me tell you guys, this is where the controversy comes in. All over social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, national media, wherever you want to look, it was one of the most controversial calls of the day. Was Michael Penix in? We know he physically didn't get in the end zone, but did that ball cross the goal line? Again, you just need the tip of the ball to cross that white line. Tip of the ball to touch the pylon, and that's a good two-point conversion. The problem was Penix going left got hit out of bounds, and it looked, to me personally, if I was the official, it looked like that ball touched out of bounds first before it hit the pylon. To me, it looked like the ball was out of bounds first before it hit the pylon, which means Michael Penix would have been just short, and Penn State would have escaped with a one-point win in overtime. But after a long review, the officials deemed that the call would stand. Indiana would be given the win, despite only holding the ball for 19 minutes and 35 seconds. Penn State held the ball for over 40 minutes in this game. Despite only racking up 211 total yards in this game, Penn State racking up 488 total yards in this game. The Hoosiers escaped with their first win against a top 10 opponent since 1987, in what is arguably going to be one of the top games of the year, one of the most talked about games of the year because of that insane finish. And again, guys, college football, it's a game of inches, and we literally saw that come into play in Bloomington on Saturday afternoon. A game of inches. Penn State fans, say what you want. Indiana fans, say what you want. Again, I think it was out of bounds, but I'm not complaining because I love great games, and quite frankly, I love chaos. And that's exactly what we got. Penn State looked like college football playoff contenders. They're going to drop from 8th, probably down to at least 15th. They've got a date next week against Ohio State. Sure, they can still win the East. Sure, they could win out. And if they do that, they probably still make the playoff. But that game against Ohio State got a lot less attractive and became a lot more important for Penn State, without a doubt. Unbelievable effort by the Hoosiers. Tom Allen, Michael Penix. Unbelievable game on Saturday afternoon. The best game of the week by far, and most controversial. Another unranked team taking down a ranked team goes over to the ACC. Wake Forest found a way to slow down Khalil Herbert and Virginia Tech, the 19th ranked Hokies. The Demon Deacons taking them down 23-16. It was the Demon Deacons' highest ranked win since 2006. The highest ranked AP poll team that they defeated since 2006. They forced 3 Virginia Tech turnovers. They held Khalil Herbert to 64 yards. Again, this was a guy that was averaging, over 250 all-purpose yards? Held him to 64 rushing yards. Dave Clawson and his squad deserve a lot of credit considering how poorly Wake Forest played at the beginning of the season. Demon Deacons looking solid though. Third win of the year, I believe, and Virginia Tech dropping to 3-2. That's a devastating loss. A loss they really couldn't afford, and a loss that was kind of surprising considering how well Virginia Tech has played in recent weeks. Notre Dame flexed their muscles a little bit, taking down Pittsburgh 45-3, the third-ranked Fighting Irish. They probably heard the complaints. They probably heard the criticism from everybody after only defeating Louisville 12-7 in South Bend last weekend. Everybody thought Notre Dame should have won that game by more, thought they were very lackluster, thought they were disappointing, and didn't deserve that third-ranked spot in the AP poll. Brian Kelly and his squad said, yeah, we do. We do deserve that spot. 45-3 over the Pittsburgh Panthers, their largest road win since 2003. The Fighting Irish forced 3 turnovers. Ian Book had 312 yards and 3 touchdowns. Notre Dame finally looking like that top 5 team. Sure, Kenny Pickett didn't play. Say what you want about that. Kenny Pickett was not going to make up for 42 points. Kenny Pickett does not equal 42 points for the Pittsburgh Panthers. Maybe 10 max. Notre Dame still would have blown them out had their starting quarterback played. Notre Dame, huge, huge win. They needed that, and they needed to win like that to kind of get the monkey off their back and show they are legit. And then finally, 2 games remaining in our Week 8 recap. Number 18, Michigan, going up to Minneapolis, taking down number 21, Minnesota, 49-24. To me, this is one of the more shocking results of Week 8. Not necessarily that Michigan won. We picked Minnesota, and we missed that one. We missed it. We always own up to our losses here at the Gridiron Expert. It wasn't the matter for me as shocking because Michigan won. It's because of how they won. They went into Minneapolis and won by 25, and the offense from Michigan that has struggled for years under Jim Harbaugh looked fantastic. And we tweeted about it. We said, I don't know if it's the fact that the Michigan offense looks this good or if it's the Minnesota defense is this bad. I don't know. But what I do know is when you look at Michigan, the fact they put up 478 yards, 253 of those coming on the ground, the fact the Michigan defense was flying all over the place, what this tells me is that the Wolverines could be the biggest challenger to Ohio State in the Big Ten East. Not Penn State, but Michigan. Minnesota, they started strong. Got the block punt, scored 2 plays later. 7-0 in Minneapolis. They're 3.5-point underdogs. They're looking good. After that, they were outscored 35-10 for the remainder of the first half. They were down 35-17 at halftime. And PJ Fleck, I think, doomed the team when he chose to go for a fake punt just a little past his own 30-yard line. Michigan stuffed them, ended up getting points out of that. And I look at that and I say, what are you doing? I get that the Minnesota defense wasn't stopping Michigan. So you thought, let's catch them off guard. Let's keep this drive alive. You would have stood a better chance just going for it than trying to fake a punt like that. That play, to me, doomed Minnesota and kind of set the tone for the rest of the game. Once Michigan got up by double digits, there was no relinquishing that. Minnesota's only lead came just seconds into the game when they scored 2 plays after that block punt. The boat is taking on water. Let's just say that. We're talking about rowing the boat so much, it's taking on water right now. Joe Milton, 277 yards for Michigan, 2 total touchdowns in his debut with the Wolverines, making his first start as quarterback for Michigan. And I got to say, Minnesota, they've got to figure stuff out. Not just for this season, but this is carrying over from last season too. Sure, they beat Auburn in their bowl game. Great way to end 2019. But let's keep in mind, their past 2 home games have been huge for the Golden Gophers. The home game against Wisconsin, that had they won, Minnesota would have won the Big Ten West. They lost that game by 21 points. And now this season opener, a top 25 showdown against Michigan, they lose this game by 25. And should we add that both times College Game Day was in town? Both times College Game Day was in Minneapolis, and the Golden Gophers laid an egg, a major one. PJ Fleck's got to figure something out with his Golden Gophers program. And then finally, the last game of Week 8 that we need to discuss, that huge American Athletic Conference showdown, one that was crucial, critical for the New Year's 6 bowl race. Number 9 Cincinnati making a huge statement by going on the road and taking down SMU, the 16th ranked Mustangs, 42-13. And you know what this tells me? This tells me that SMU is not cut out to play with the big boys. Congratulations. You can throw the ball really well. You can throw it well, and you can beat inferior opponents. Sometimes by only a field goal, but congrats, you can do that. But when you face someone that has a semi-decent defense, when you face someone in a big-time game, in a big-time setting, you can't win. And Sonny Dykes and the Mustangs have to figure that out. Because their performance at home Saturday night was pitiful. Embarrassing. The Cincinnati defense deserves all the credit here. Their offense does too, for that matter. This is a team that hadn't played in 3 weeks. The last time out, their quarterback, Desmond Ridder, threw 3 interceptions against South Florida. Yet Desmond Ridder comes out there and looks like a Heisman Trophy contender. 4 total touchdowns for Ridder, 3 of those coming on the ground, 179 rushing yards for the Cincinnati quarterback, including a 91-yard rushing touchdown later in that fourth quarter. SMU continued to shoot themselves in the foot. First, they were held to 290 total yards, about half of their season average. Their quarterback, Shane Buechele, held to 216 yards, well below his season average. And SMU had their chances. They had poor clock management at the end of the first half, got 3 points at the end of the first half to make it 14-10 instead of making it 14-14. They used their timeout there. I guarantee the Mustangs score. They go into half with a little bit more momentum. But they get 3 instead of 7 there. They recover a Cincinnati fumble deep in their own territory in the fourth quarter. Fail to get any points out of that. They get another red zone possession after stopping Cincinnati. They get 3 points instead of 7 there, making it 28-13. If SMU scores touchdowns on all 3 of those possessions, it's a completely different ballgame. Cincinnati's strategy changes. SMU's strategy changes. The momentum changes. Sonny Dykes and the Mustangs unable to do anything. It wasn't like they even prepared for this game. We knew Cincinnati had a good defense. We questioned their offense. We now know that Cincinnati, when they are ready and when they are capable, they are absolutely a top 10 team. They are absolutely the top team in the American Athletic Conference. And they absolutely can find that balance between a dominating offense and a suffocating defense. We saw that on Saturday night. The Bearcats, let me tell you, this team's for real. And if they run the table, that means going undefeated, they can make a legitimate threat. They can make a legitimate case. That's the word I'm looking for. A legitimate case for the college football playoff. One that I think is better than the one that Central Florida had just a few years ago. Cincinnati, this is a dang good team, guys. They got a win over SMU. They've got Memphis next week, a Memphis team that could very well be in the top 25. Yet to play Central Florida. They win all of those games. And the Bearcats are college football playoff contenders, no doubt in my mind. Embarrassing performance by the Mustangs at home, I should add. Sonny Dykes and Shane Buechele have got to work something out because offense isn't going to win you anything. It's great that you can throw the ball. It's great that you can score points. You weren't able to do it here. If you're unable to do it here against elite defenses, it doesn't mean anything. So let's take a look at our teams trending up and trending down. A wild week 8. Again, a little bit lackluster, but the Penn State loss was crazy. The Virginia Tech loss was crazy. And the results that we saw from the biggest games of the week, SMU and Cincinnati, Alabama and Tennessee, Michigan and Minnesota. Results like that, performances from those games, is what made this weekend so exciting and so interesting. But let's take a look at the teams trending up. Let's start with Army, who just became the first team to, accept their bowl bid. The Black Knights are going to the Independence Bowl, sitting at 6-1 right now. Since Army's loss to Cincinnati at the end of September, the Black Knights have won 4 straight games. Now, granted, 3 of those 4 games have been over FCS schools, but if I'm Army, I don't care. A win is a win, and take advantage of that while you can because there are no requirements for bowl eligibility this year. On a given year, you beat 3 teams or 4 teams out of the FCS, those aren't going to help you in terms of bowl eligibility. This year they do. Army looking extremely good right now. They're looking very impressive. Their final 4 games, though, will really show us how good this Army team is. Air Force at home, at Tulane, and then Georgia Southern and Navy, both at home as well. Those are all very tough opponents. And we're going to really see how good this Army team is. Is the 6-1 record a fluke? Or are they legit? I would beg to say they are legit, 100%. 6-1 for Army, 4 straight wins. They're trending up. Of course, all the respect in the world to our military academies and their football programs. Navy, Army, Air Force, guys like that. Missouri, out of the SEC. Look, I guess I maybe owe Eli Drinkwitz an apology. I don't want to go that far yet, but I do want to give him a little bit of credit right now for the job he's doing with the Tigers. Who would have thought right now that Eli Drinkwitz and Sam Pittman would be the two best SEC hires from this past offseason? Not Mike Leach, not Lane Kiffin, but Eli Drinkwitz and Sam Pittman. The Tigers just defeated Kentucky 20-10. The same Kentucky team that just went on the road and defeated Tennessee 34-7 last week. Don't know if that's saying much. We'll talk about them in a second. But 2 weeks ago, Missouri beat LSU, the reigning national champions, on that amazing goal line stand, stopping them 4 times from the 1-yard line. So they beat LSU. They beat Kentucky more convincingly than I think the LSU win was. So Missouri, sitting at 2-2, is looking pretty dang good right now. The problem is their next 2 games are against Florida on the road and then Georgia and Columbia. Can the Tigers win either of those games? Or can they at least put up a fight? That remains to be seen, but regardless, 2 conference wins already for a brand new head coach in a season where you really had no expectations at all. Give all the credit in the world to Eli Drinkwitz and this Missouri team. They are trending in the right direction. And then finally, Memphis, we just talked about them. They should be a top 25 team going into week 9. Even if you don't think they are, the AP probably will do it just to have that ranked versus ranked matchup against Cincinnati. Again, the Bearcats and the Tigers facing off on Halloween. But Memphis, sitting at 3-1 right now. They just beat Central Florida last week. They just got revenge over Temple. Remember, the Tigers lost to Temple, their lone regular season loss in 2019. They just defeated the Owls 41-29. Tigers are looking really good. Ryan Silverfield doing a great job down in Memphis. Let's see if he can pull off a monster upset and shake up everything in the American Athletic Conference next weekend when they play on the road against Cincinnati. We'll touch on that game next week. Teams trending down. Ole Miss. The Lane train has been derailed. The pirate ship in Starkville has been sunk. The Mississippi schools are looking horrible. Mississippi State's already been on our teams trending down. Now it's time for Ole Miss. They got really, botched, screwed over, hurt by the referees against Auburn. If anybody watched that game, it was clear as day that the Auburn return man touched that ball on the kickoff, which would have been a fumble or a muff. And Ole Miss had the immediate recovery in the end zone. So regardless of what you want to say, it should have been a safety, it should have been a touchdown, whatever. Ole Miss, to me, probably should have won that game against Auburn, because if Ole Miss recovers that ball in the end zone, like they should have, and like they did, and if the referees call that correctly, like they should have, Ole Miss defeats Auburn, a team that should be 1-4 right now. Referees helping out Auburn a lot this season. Missed call against Arkansas, missed call against Ole Miss, and I'm not blaming that entire loss on the referees, but I do think it was something that Ole Miss fans are very furious about, and rightfully so. But the Rebels are 1-4. 1-4, had a horrible last possession against the Tigers, trying to go down there and tie it. Matt Corral deciding to go about 5 yards past the line of scrimmage and then throw the last-ditch effort pass. I mean, it was horrible. Horrible time management, horrible play calls. Don't know what Lane Kiffin's thinking. Luckily for Ole Miss, the back half of the schedule is more favorable. At Vanderbilt, South Carolina, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and at LSU. A handful of winnable games in there to try to salvage what already seems to be a lost season. TCU, high expectations going into 2020. They failed to meet them. They're 1-3. They've dropped their past 2 games since they went on the road to Austin and upset Texas. That includes a 33-14 loss to Oklahoma just this past Saturday. Max Duggan's doing everything he can. Kind of reminds me of Sam Ehlinger right now. Duggan's got some great talent, great mobility. He just has no help around him. No help around him. We have not seen TCU really contending in the Big 12, and we haven't seen the TCU teams like we've seen under Gary Patterson in a long, long time. Those dominating TCU teams from the early 2010s, haven't seen them in years. And we're certainly not going to see them now. Horned Frogs 1-3, not looking good. And Tennessee, it's not their year. Again, the Volunteers have not been relevant since 1998? I tried to give Tennessee some credit. I said they don't deserve to be a top 15 team, but if they hang with Georgia, I'll give them a little bit of credit. They did hang with Georgia, and I said, okay, they deserve that top 20 spot. Then they lost 34-7 at home against Kentucky. And I said, all right, that's ridiculous. That's it. And then against Alabama, they fought hard for a little bit. I didn't expect them to beat Alabama, but at Neyland Stadium, you think, hey, maybe they can get a little bit going. They followed the Crimson Tide, 48-17, something like that. They've been outscored 126-45 in their last 3 games, and they have yet to face Arkansas, Texas A&M, Auburn, or Florida on their schedule. Tennessee's not back. They're 2-3, and it's going to be a very, very rough finish for the Volunteers in 2020. So much so that Jeremy Pruitt, if he's not fired, his seat will be on actual fire going into 2021. I know it's a lot to take in, guys. I know it's a ridiculous amount of information to take in, but man, what a weekend of college football. Again, maybe lackluster, maybe a little bit more normal. We needed a week like this to catch up, to catch our breath, and kind of relax a little bit. We needed that. We needed that time to sit back and regroup. Because again, things are going to get hectic again next weekend. It's Halloween college football Saturday. Come on, you can't ask for anything better. It's only fitting that would happen in 2020. So get ready for more madness coming your way next weekend, and get ready for more content coming to you from right here at the Gridiron Expert. Tomorrow, we break down the new AP Top 25 poll. A lot of changes. 6 Top 25 teams lost in Week 8. Tuesday, Week 9 predictions. 2 Game of the Week videos coming out this week. Our newsletter and our expert picks coming out later this week as well. Don't miss out on any of it. So guys, once again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all had a safe and fantastic college football weekend. I hope you have a safe and fantastic rest of your Sunday. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.